Chapter 18. As I waited for Bella to wake, the sun began its descent in the sky, skimming the tops of the trees before dropping behind the wall of the forest. Soon it settled below the hidden horizon. Twilight again. I let the sadness settle in my soul. The melancholy of the passing day took on a haunting new meaning when you feared that time was limited for the one you held most precious. Bella moved restlessly and opened her eyes. I leaned over and kissed her on the forehead. "Bella, love," I said, trying to sound casual. "The ultrasound machine is here. Would you like to go upstairs and try it?" She shook her head eagerly, her eyes bright. She was actually excited to get a look at this thing. I sighed and started to gather her in my arms. Then the phone rang. "If that's Charlie, I want to talk to him," said Bella quickly. I grimaced and heard a chorus of quiet sighs echo throughout the house. "Bella, love," I said, "you're not feeling well. Let Esme talk to him." "No, I want to," she persisted. "He's so upset, so worried. I want to make him feel better." Bella had been insisting on talking to Charlie by phone, feeding him the story, rather ingeniously thought up at the last minute by Carlisle, that she was sick, contagious, and in quarantine. During the first phone call, it had been a difficult struggle to keep Charlie away, culminating in a few moments of panic and hasty preparations to leave, before Carlisle was able, speaking in his most professional, stern voice, to dissuade Charlie from coming to the house. Before Bella and I had left on our honeymoon, Jasper had insisted on talking about what our plan was if things didn't go well, and I had to change her on the island. Safety and security were his greatest concern, given that everyone in town knew that I was away with Bella. I had sat silently in the other room, listening to Carlisle, Esme, Jasper, and Rosalie talk and plan. This was not a conversation I could bear to have. Jasper thought the easiest and most convenient plan was a small plane crash on the way home from the honeymoon, wreckage and bodies never found. But I had told him that Bella was hoping that maybe, after a year or two, when she was ready, she could see Charlie again, and maybe even Renee. She didn't want them to think she was dead, just far away, unreachable. Jasper thought this was a risky, foolish plan, as did Rosalie. She was very vocal about all the obvious problems with this idea. Esme tried to back up Bella's position. She was deeply saddened at the idea of Bella's parents losing her forever. Carlisle was torn, wanting to appease Bella while also maintaining the safety of his family. In the end, no true decision had been made. If something went wrong, the story would be that Bella and I were staying on the island, indefinitely, unreachable by phone, until we figured out a plan. But now, to have Charlie know we were so close, to let him talk to Bella, feeding his hopes that he would see her soon, all the while probably making him very suspicious, made the situation extremely tenuous. Bella held out her hand expectantly, and Esme appeared with a phone. After her phone call, I scooped her up in my arms to bring her upstairs. I was anxious to get on with the ultrasound. I could no longer stand our utter ignorance of what was truly going on inside her. "Put me down," she protested. I ignored her, heading up the stairs. "Bella," I said, "you're at risk of falling down these stairs on your best day. Forget right now." She bit her lip and then gave me a small smile, knowing I was right. I laid her carefully on the table, and Carlisle pulled back her shirt, exposing her stomach. Under the harsh lights of the office, the bruises were truly a gruesome sight, and I couldn't help my sharp intake of breath. Bella quickly glanced at me, her face pained by my reaction. Rosalie, Emmett, and Esme also stood around the table. I held Bella's hand, and noticed with annoyance when Rosalie, standing across the table from me, picked up her other hand. Carlisle put the gel on the ultrasound probe, and then placed it on Bella's stomach. She sucked in a breath. It must have been cold. "Sorry," whispered Carlisle. He looked carefully at the screen, and his mind flooded immediately with disappointment. I looked at the screen too, trying to make sense of it. He moved the wand all around. "Doesn't work. Can't see anything. Confirms my theory." He sighed and flipped off the machine. "I'm sorry," he said. "I can't make an ultrasonic image of it." Bella and Rosalie looked disappointed. My panic began to escalate. "Carlisle," I said, "if we can't see it, how can we know what it is? This is crazy, madness. Without any information, how can we let this go on?" My voice started to rise. I was having trouble hanging on to my control. I didn't dare look at Bella. "Calm down, Edward," thought Carlisle. "Well, we could try to do an amniocentesis. That would entail using a needle to extract fluid from the womb, although I am very skeptical we could find a needle made of a substance that would penetrate it. But if it worked, I could run tests to figure out more about the fetus." Both Bella and Rosalie sucked in sharp breaths. "Needles?" mumbled Bella. "No way," said Rosalie. "Too dangerous," I hissed. "This is ridiculous, Rosalie. How can we help Bella if you won't let us do anything?" I snapped. "You are not sticking needles in there," she growled. "Then at least let us give her some morphine for the pain," I demanded. "Absolutely not," snapped Rosalie. "It might not be good for the baby." "Good for the baby?" I gasped in disbelief. "This thing is not a baby," I screamed in my head. "What about Bella? Do you care about her at all?" I was livid. Rosalie was pushing me to the breaking point. "Of course I do," she snapped. I snarled quietly and glanced at Carlisle. He was looking down, frowning, as if he were deciding something. He looked up at me, and I quickly shook my head when I read the plan in his mind. "She needs to know all the facts, Edward. It's her choice. Plus maybe it will change things." "Bella," Carlisle spoke, his face serious. "I think the fetus is encased in something rather like vampire skin. That is why we cannot make an ultrasonic image of it. Based on what Edward heard on the island and the research we've been able to do, we believe the fetus will exit the womb by using its teeth to tear it open." He paused. Bella's face had frozen. She couldn't hide her shock at this image. I felt a grim sense of hope that she might finally realize the danger of the situation. Carlisle looked pained, but continued. "We don't want to let it get to that point, so I'm thinking the plan should be to remove the fetus ourselves when the time comes, with our own teeth." His eyes tightened, and his next words came out in barely a whisper. "Before it kills you." Bella stared at him for a long moment. My emotions were churning now, threatening to boil over. This had to be the moment that she gave in. This information had to make her see reason. If not, I didn't know if I could hold myself back anymore, without going crazy. I watched Bella's face, and then my heart sank as her expression turned from fearful to stubborn and finally thoughtful. She took a deep breath. "Yes, well, I guess that sounds okay," she said calmly. Rosalie nodded. She had guessed as much from overheard conversations. "I think that makes sense, as long as we wait until it's safe for the baby." I snapped. My emotions poured out beyond my control. "No!" I roared. "This is not okay. None of this makes sense. I can't take this anymore." My voice was too loud, filling the room. "Edward," Bella gasped. I looked down at her. Her eyes were wide. "Bella," I said desperately, "I can't stand by anymore, watching this thing hurt you, watching you waste away. This has to end." "No one is ending it," snarled Rosalie. I looked at her, fury in my eyes. "I'm sick of you, Rosalie," I shouted. "Stay out of it. We have to get this thing out. We have to do it before it's too late." "No, Edward," cried Bella. I didn't look at her. I didn't want to unleash my anger at her. "It's too soon. It's not safe for the baby to come out yet," yelled Rosalie. She gripped the table with both hands, leaning toward me. "I don't care about that. I can't wait any more," I thundered. I sensed Alice and Jasper coming into the room behind me. "Stop it, Edward," Alice thought desperately. I blocked her out. "What if this thing starts to tear its way out before we can stop it?" I snarled. "Well, that's a risk we're willing to take," said Rosalie in a steely voice. "Even if that risk might end up killing Bella?" I growled. Rosalie just stared at me, silently. She tried to keep her mind blank, but I could find no denial in her thoughts. All the rage, all the resentment that had been building up towards Rosalie exploded out of me. I roared with fury. My arm shot out over the table to grab her. My fingers were a fraction of an inch from her neck, when a larger, stronger arm seized mine and dragged it away, wrenching it behind my back, along with my other arm. Rosalie hissed, and I snarled loudly, struggling to pull my arms free. "Stop!" roared Carlisle. His voice echoed loudly off the walls of the room. We all froze, and turned slowly to stare at him in shock. In the over 90 years I had been with him, I didn't think I had ever heard Carlisle raise his voice in anger. None of us had. Silence fell as we all looked at him, stunned. His face was calm, but his eyes blazed with fury as he looked directly at me. He was angry with me. "Edward!" he hissed, anger flickering in his eyes. I stood motionless, locked in his gaze. Emmett dropped my arms. "Look at what you're doing to her!" I looked down, and then I understood. Bella was hunched over on the table, her face in her knees, her hands pressed against her ears. Her body convulsed as she sobbed silently. My anger drained away, leaving me with only shame and fear. "Bella," I cried quietly. I picked her up and cradled her in my arms, and she wrapped her hands around my neck, pressing her face into my chest, sobbing harder. I carried her gently down the stairs to the couch. Mercifully, no one followed for once. I laid her down carefully and knelt beside her. "Bella, I love you," I said miserably. What else could I say? "I love you so much." She looked up at me, and under her tears her eyes blazed with emotion. "I love you too," she whispered. Her hands reached up and grabbed onto the back of my head, and she pulled herself up and crushed her lips to mine. My body reacted instantly, and I kissed her back eagerly. Oh God, this felt good. This was the way to forget, to escape the misery, even for a few short minutes. Her soft skin, her scent, her pounding heart, they all filled me. Her warm fingers clutched in my hair. I pulled away from her mouth as she gasped, moving to her neck, across her collarbone, and back up to her mouth. Heaven! I wanted to press her against me, to hold her like I had on the island, during those sweet, too short days, with nothing between us. But I didn't dare touch her. I was kneeling next to her, and I clutched the couch on either side of her with my hands. Too fragile to touch, my mind screamed. Too thin, too weak. I kept my hands against the couch, resisting the urge as she pressed her lips hard against mine. And then she was pushing me away, small hands just a flutter on my chest, but I moved away immediately. "Edward," she gasped. She brought her hands up to her face and rubbed the tears out of her eyes. Her hair was tangled and wet. Pale skin stretched tight over her thin face, and her sad brown eyes were rimmed red, pleading with me. "I need you to understand. I need you to want this baby like I do. I need you to love him too." I stared at her for a moment, emptiness filling me, and then slowly shook my head. "I can't, Bella," I choked, my voice agonized. "I can't." Her face crumbled, and new tears began to pour out of her eyes. "Edward!" A loud, clear voice rang out. I looked up. Alice. She was standing at the top of the stairs, for once her face smooth, the pain not evident. Carlisle was standing behind her in the shadows, his face grave. I stood up automatically. "Enough," thought Alice, and then she was standing in front of me. Her face was hard. Esme moved to comfort Bella, blocking us from her view. Alice put her tiny hand on my chest and pushed me back several feet. Emmett and Jasper appeared behind her, their dark eyes flashing intently. Alice was blocking her thoughts, but Emmett and Jasper were under too much strain to keep me out effectively, and I saw their intentions. Alice was upset with me. She wanted to talk to me, alone, away from Bella. She suspected I wouldn't want to come. Emmett and Jasper were there to move me to another room if I wouldn't go quietly. Suddenly Jasper disappeared, and I felt him standing behind me. The plan was for him to grab me, try to calm me into a state of lethargy, and then they would take me quickly out of the room. It was a foolish plan. It wouldn't work. They should have known that. But then I caught the tenor of another thought from Jasper. Thirst. I remembered how his eyes had glinted, dark gold with a growing ring of black, when he was in front of me. And as I cast my mind around the room, I realized everyone was fighting their thirst. I couldn't believe I had not been more mindful of this, but I had been so distraught over the last couple of days. My throat burned, but I welcomed the pain, relished it. It was a fraction of what I deserved. Others in my family, however, had their limits. The last planned hunting trip had been abruptly cancelled by Bella's unexpected scream. Did they ever take that hunting trip? Had they gone even once since we got home? I felt a stab of fear. I did not want any of them to lose control around Bella, even if it was just in a struggle with me. Too risky. I would cooperate, keep things calm, safe. Alice had never even had to say a word. She probably saw it happening this way all along. I looked down at her stonily. "Let's go," I said.
"Thank you,"
she thought. I followed her into the dark dining room, Emmett and Jasper behind me. I sat down in a chair, and Alice stood in front of me, her arms folded across her chest.
"This has got to stop,"
she said. "No kidding," I said angrily.
"No, Edward."
She shook her head.
"I mean, you have got to stop."
I stared at her silently. I wasn't sure what she was getting at. Her thoughts were scattered, moving quickly. She took a deep breath, and then her mind came into focus.
"Right now,"
she said slowly, deliberately,
"you are hurting Bella, killing Bella, more than that thing inside her."
I froze. I stared at her, unbelieving. What was she trying to do to me? Alice's eyes softened, and she knelt down in front of me, taking my hands in hers.
"Edward,"
she said quietly,
"we all know. Well, we don't know, but we understand what you're going through. As much as it's tearing us up, we know it's destroying you infinitely more. But every time you show Bella what it's doing to you, with your face, your words, your actions, you attack her strength. You make her pain worse. You make her heart work even harder. The stress is too much for her."
My throat seemed to constrict with pain and sadness. "What do you want me to do?" I choked out. "I can't just stand there, watching it hurt and kill her, and say nothing, do nothing."
"You can,"
Alice said gently, holding my eyes with her own.
"At least in front of her. It's crushing, Bella, what this is doing to you. And your anger, your revulsion towards the fetus,
Alice paused briefly.
"the baby that she loves. That is hurting her more than you can ever know."
"But I have to help her," I whispered.
"Then help her by supporting her, taking care of her, loving her,"
Alice said firmly, standing up.
"That is your job right now. We're all filling our roles. Emmett and Jasper are doing research. Carlisle is worrying about the medical side of things. I am unsuccessfully watching her future."
"And Rosalie?" I said darkly. Alice grimaced and glanced briefly at Emmett. His face remained impassive.
"Rosalie is helping in her own way, at Bella's request."
I was silent. I felt something mounting inside me, something dark and uncontrollable.
"You need to do your part too, and stop making things even harder for Bella,"
Alice said gently.
"Do you see, Edward?"
Did I see? I looked into Alice's eyes, but I did not see them. I saw Bella's stomach, covered in violent purple marks in the bright lights of the office. I saw Carlisle's eyes, angry, glinting back at me. I saw Rosalie, her face smug, taking Bella's hand across the table. I could feel Emmett's hands holding my arms behind my back. I could hear Alice's voice in my head, telling me to stop. I saw Jasper in the forest, fight in his eyes. Esme holding a newborn infant. Alice's destroyed visions of the future. Bella running across the airport into Rosalie's arms. And over all that, I saw Bella's eyes. Bella's eyes when I told her that I couldn't love the thing inside her. Red and tired, overflowing with tears, confusion, sadness, and loss. And a ghost of the past shimmered then. Those same eyes, unfathomable depths of liquid brown, looking up at me under an arc of flowers. The sweet smell of freesia, orange, and lilac enveloping us. Her eyes sparkling and alive, looking at me with love, trust, and hope. The magnitude of it crushed me then. I felt something deep inside break, something crucial and elemental to my control, and I knew I had to get out of there. Jasper pulled in a sharp breath and stepped back, assaulted by the unexpected force of my emotions. I got up and flew wordlessly from the room, out the back so Bella would not see me, pushing aside the calls of concern from the minds in the house at my departure. Instead, I let the waves of rage and anguish roll over me, let them have their way with me, as I flew over the river and began to move through the forest. I let myself run full out for a minute, feeling the gentle whip of the wind on my face, letting my emotions speed me as they built, and then at their pinnacle I forced my feet to stop. I could not, would not, go too far from Bella. I never wanted to be far from Bella. I let the emotions out of me in a way I couldn't in the confines of the house. I tore the nearest tree out of the earth by its roots, and threw it with all my force, relishing the release of my muscles, at another helpless tree. They fell to the ground with an echoing smash. Several more followed that one, my hands lashing out to clutch, tear, and fling anything within reach. "Why?" I shouted, feeling release in the violent explosion of air from my lungs. I unearthed another small tree, crushing it through with my fingers until my hands were fists filled with the crumbling remains of wood. I threw it aside, and with both hands I pushed against a large trunk, a gentle giant of the forest, and it cracked over slowly, pressing in the tree next to it, as the desperate shock of the surrounding wildlife vibrated through me. Then I wrapped my arms around it, halting its movement, hopefully saving it for another generation. I lay my forehead against the bark, and became still. Finally, I looked up. My destructive outburst had created a small opening in the ceiling of the forest, and some of the night sky and stars were visible between the trees. I unwrapped my arms from the tree trunk, and lay down on my back on the forest floor. I looked at the stars, flickering beacons in the endless black, hoping for peace, but all I could see was the dueling visions of Bella's eyes that filled my mind. I sighed. There was escape in the physical release of my emotions, but not salvation. The infinite desperation of the situation remained. Bella was still sick, still in pain, and it was still my fault. The future I had seen when I looked in her eyes under the arch that day was beyond my grasp now. Why had this happened? I would not find the answer to that question out here. Perhaps there was no answer. So for a few minutes I just let myself feel the fear, the anger, the disappointment, and then I could think about what Alice had said. I knew Alice was right. I needed to stop showing my overwhelming emotions and get under control. The depths of my anguish was hurting Bella. It caused her too much stress, and it was making her even sicker. I had seen it in her eyes, in the color of her face, and the way she held her body. For someone with Bella's depth of compassion, she could not see the hurt in others without hurting herself. I also thought about my family. The image of my 3 siblings standing in front of me in the dining room, burning in my mind. I knew they loved me. They loved Bella. My family had put their entire lives on hold without a second thought to help her. When Bella decided to spend her life with me, she tied herself not only to me, but to my whole family, and those ties were strong. I knew that Bella's pain, her uncertain future, was destroying them as well as myself. Bella. My anger now released, the overwhelming need to see her, to feel her under my hands, warm and alive, drove me up and back towards the house. I went over the river and around the back. As I moved past the garage, I noticed someone had left the door open, and a hint of red flashed at me. Rosalie's convertible M3, her favorite. I moved swiftly, and without thinking, my hand whipped out and pulled off the hood. My fingers gripped the metal of the engine, pressing in several inches as the metal groaned, and then I clenched and tore it out, throwing it down in front of me where it met my foot, and then flew through the air, smashing into the far wall. I shuddered with satisfaction. When I reached the house, Alice was sitting on the stairs by the door, her elbows on her knees and her chin resting on her fists. She was waiting for me. I walked up and stood in front of her for a moment. Her forehead was creased, as she concentrated, as always, on Bella's future. The visions were blurry and unreadable, creating an ache in her head, and I watched with her for a minute, sharing her pain. Finally, she looked up at me. "You're right, Alice, about causing Bella stress," I said. "I will try to do better." She nodded, a small smile on her face. We were silent for a moment. "Can you see my future, Alice?" I whispered. Alice frowned.
"Not really, Edward,"
she sighed.
"Your fate is tied too tightly to Bella's. It's hard to see very far. I saw that you wouldn't leave Bella to come talk to me if I didn't bring Emmett and Jasper. I saw that you would come back after you left." She showed me a vision of the 2 of us, talking as we were now. Alice stood up, eyes intent on mine. "But Edward,"
her voice was low, urgent now,
"I don't need my vision to see that this birth is going to happen. You can't change Bella's mind. You can't stop this."
I shook my head slowly back and forth. Alice sighed and placed her hands on my shoulders.
"Think about it."
Her voice was confident.
"You've shown time and time again that you're the strongest of all of us. I know you can do this, Edward. Give Bella what she needs from you."
She jumped up lightly and kissed me on the cheek.
"You know I love you,"
she said. I patted her soft, dark head. "I love you too." She smiled and twirled around, heading back into the house.
"And I want to see Rosalie's face when she finds out what you did to her car," she thought.
I muttered, and then followed after her.
"Edward's back,"
Esme thought in relief, at the sound of my entrance. I went back through the dining room and stood for a moment in the doorway, looking at Bella. She was sitting on the couch, and Rosalie was brushing her long hair. It looked like she had taken a shower. She was wearing an oversized shirt, one of mine. It still stretched tight over her stomach. I was resolved to follow Alice's orders. I would do better by Bella, outwardly controlling my anguish. I had to try to hide how this was destroying me. But in my dead heart, I knew I would never stop fighting to save Bella from this, never stop looking for a way to change things, as long as there was still a chance. Inside, I was still fighting. Inside, I was still burning. I started to walk into the room when Carlisle stopped me. His face was anxious. "Edward," he said, "I owe you an apology. I never should have raised my voice like that." "No, Carlisle," I sighed. "You were right. I was hurting Bella, and I needed to be stopped." "Still," he said, frowning, "I know what a terrible strain you're under. I shouldn't have gotten angry." "You are under a lot of strain too, Carlisle," I reminded him. He was almost as distressed as I was. Hearing his thoughts in that moment, I realized how much Carlisle blamed himself for what was happening. He felt responsible for not warning us that this was a possibility, even though it was something he had never imagined. I squeezed his shoulder and went towards Bella. Rosalie's mind was filled with glowering suspicion about the sounds from the garage, and I ignored her. All in good time, I thought. "Hi there," I said. Bella looked up at me, her eyes wary. I smiled at her, trying to make my eyes match my expression. She gave me a small smile and reached up to take my hand. Her touch was like an electric shock. Her eyes glowed up at me, and of course, the love was still there, always there. I kissed her gently on the lips, feeling the jolt current that always ran between us. Suddenly, she sucked in her breath and bent over, her face tightening. It seemed there was no reprieve from the pain. "Bella," I whispered, dropping down to my knees. She squeezed my hand, and I stroked her hair until her face relaxed, although pain still danced in her eyes. She lay down, and I knelt beside her, my arms around her. She closed her eyes and slowly drifted away. My mind was quietly working. As the hours passed, an idea began to grow in my head. It crawled in, uninvited, and at first I tried to force it back out. But as I watched Bella in pain, heard her cries, the idea gained strength, began to expand and work its way into my every thought. I hated it, despised it, and yet appreciated it at the same time. Something that might provide a spark of hope, something that might be able to change her mind, change the future. Someone, Jacob. She loved and connected with him in a way I still didn't fully understand. He might be able to get through to her where I couldn't. Perhaps, I wasn't sure yet. He might have the power to change what was to come. And if he couldn't, and if I wasn't able to save Bella, well, then I had another favor to ask of him.